I'm about to show you how Claude Co-work can build an automated workflow for financial modeling, turning the entire process into a reusable system that can update itself automatically when new data comes in. Now, there was a point where Claude became very effective for building financial models using the chatbot and the Excel add-in, but the workflow still happened one prompt at a time. You extract the data, then you clean it, then you build the model, then you fix the formulas, and when new statements arrive, you run the same sequence again. The model gives you good outputs, but the workflow itself is not stored anywhere. It only exists in the conversation. So this becomes quite inconvenient when you want to reuse it. What I'm going to show you today is how to move from that chat-based approach to a fully reusable pipeline that runs automatically when new data comes in. It can literally start from a raw PDF financial statement, extract and standardize the data, build the financial model, generate forecasts, export a structured Excel file with audit logs, and then run the same workflow again next quarter without you rebuilding anything. Now, if you want the prompts and the data sets from this video, they're free in my community. The link is in the description below. Now let's get into it. Why Claude Co-work changes financial modeling. Okay, so before we get into the build, I need to explain why this approach works differently from what most people are doing with AI in finance, because the distinction affects how you structure everything that follows. When you use Claude in a normal chat window, every prompt is a standalone interaction. You ask it to extract revenue figures, it responds. Then you ask it to clean the numbers, new response. Then you ask it to build a model, then you get another response. At every stage, you are the one holding context together. You are remembering what happened in the last step. You're deciding what comes next, and you're manually feeding information forward. The model has no awareness of the pipeline. It treats each prompt like it's the first thing you ever asked it. Now that works for one-off questions, but financial modeling is a chain of dependent steps where each one relies on what came before it. If you are extracting data from 6 quarterly PDF reports, and you're standardizing the line items across all of them, and you're building a model with growth rates and margin calculations, and it's producing forecast, that is a multi-stage process that needs to stay internally consistent from start to finish. Stringing together 10 separate prompts where you copy and paste context between them is quite fragile, and it's the kind of thing that introduces errors quietly. Claude Co-work changes the operating model. You give it the full objective and it plans and executes the entire sequence. It reads PDFs, it extracts tables, it cleans data, it standardizes formats, it builds calculations, it generates Excel files with real formulas, and it saves everything to your workspace. One continuous flow where each step builds on the last one. And you are reviewing the output instead of managing the pipeline. Now, the second thing that matters, and this is what most people miss, is the concept of skills. Now, a skill is a structured package that contains instructions, logic, and executable scripts. So when Claude detects that a task matches an available skill, it loads the relevant one and then follows the workflow automatically. So once you build a financial modeling pipeline and you save it as a skill, every future run uses the same logic, the same extraction methods, and the same validation checks. The process is codified. Quarterly reporting, monthly close, annual model updates. These are workflows where the structure stays the same and only the data changes. And that is exactly where a reusable skill pays for itself almost immediately. Now, let me show you what this looks like when you run it end to end. Building the financial model from raw PDFs. Okay, so in this section, I'm going to walk you through the full process of going from a folder of raw PDF financial statements to a complete financial model in Excel. Everything that comes after this, the skill creation and the reuse, depends on getting this part right. So inside our workspace, we have a folder called Statements containing 6 quarterly PDF reports from ABC Pharma Limited. Now these are the kind of documents you get in practice, formatted for human reading, tables embedded in the PDF layout, line items labeled differently across periods, The kind of thing that takes an analyst a full day to manually transcribe into a spreadsheet. I connected Claude Co-work to the financial modeling workspace and pointed it to the folder structure where the work would happen. Before Claude starts the extraction, it reads the built-in PDF skill documentation and the Excel skill documentation. It is loading best practices for table extraction, OCR handling, number cleaning, and workbook generation before it touches a single file. The quality of PDF extraction depends on how you approach it, and the quality of the Excel output depends on using formulas rather than hard coding values. Claude is preparing its approach based on the tools available in the workspace. The prompt defines the entire workflow in one instruction. Instead of guiding Claude step by step, we tell it to locate all financial statement PDFs, extract the data, clean and standardize the numbers, map every line item into a consistent financial structure, validate the results, build the model, and export a fully structured Excel file with logs and audit flags. This means Claude is not just answering prompts, it is running a complete pipeline. The prompt defines the rules, the output format, the validation checks, and how to handle uncertainty so that the system can finish the workflow end to end and produce the same structured, auditable result every time. That last instruction is critical. In a normal chat interaction, Claude stops and asks you whenever it hits something ambiguous. In this workflow, we tell it to log the uncertainty and just to keep going. This is how you get from PDFs to a finalized model in one run instead of spending an hour answering clarification questions. Claude processes all 6 PDFs, identifies the company as ABC Pharma Limited, and pulls the financial data across 7 quarters from Q1 2025 through Q3 2026. It cleans the numbers, standardizes the line items, and organizes everything into a structure ready for modeling. Then it builds the financial model. Gross profit calculated as revenue minus COGS, gross margin derived as gross profit divided by revenue, operating income, EBITDA, and the calculations carried through to net income. It adds year-over-year growth rates and margin trends so the workbook shows the trajectory of the business over time. The forecast layer has 3 scenarios: base case following the historical trend, upside with 5% additional growth, downside with 5% less. All formula driven, so when you update actuals, the forecasts recalculate automatically. The final Excel output has 8 sheets: README, raw extraction with unmodified data from the PDFs, standardized data with cleaned and mapped line items, assumptions where the forecast parameters live, historical model with all calculated financials, forecast with 3 scenarios, dashboards with charts, and audit flags logging every data quality issue found during extraction. Claude runs a verification pass at the end. In this case, 284 formulas recalculated with 0 errors. Every cell is formula driven and internally consistent. The supporting files are also saved: extraction log in JSON, audit report in CSV, and standardized financials as a separate CSV. Everything you need to trace the model back to its source data. Now, here is where your judgment comes in. Before you trust any of these numbers, open the raw extraction sheet and compare a few line items against the original PDFs. Check that revenue in Q3 2026 matches what the PDF actually says. Verify that COGS was mapped correctly and the sign conventions are right. The audit flag sheet is where Claude logged any low confidence extractions, and those are the first places to look. The model is structurally sound, but the data quality is only as good as what the PDFs contain, and you always validate that manually before presenting it. Now at this point, we have a working financial model built entirely from raw PDFs. But if new quarterly statements arrive next month, we would have to run the whole process again, and that is what the next step solves. Converting the workflow into a reusable skill. Okay, so now that the model is built and verified, I'm going to show you how to take the workflow we just completed and convert it into a reusable skill that Claude can run automatically in the future. The prompt is direct. We tell Claude to analyze what it just did, break the workflow into logical modules like data extraction, line item mapping, validation, model building, and Excel generation, and then package each module even as a callable component inside a single cell. We also tell it to add orchestration logic so the modules run in the correct sequence. We include error handling with confidence scoring and audit flags, and make the skill configurable for different companies and forecast settings. Claude uses the built-in skill creator to structure the package. It creates a skill called fs to model with a main instruction file, skill.md, containing the description, trigger logic, and step-by-step instructions. Inside the skill, Claude creates two Python scripts. The first one, extract_financials.py, handles the PDF side of the process. It reads each file, it pulls out the tables and text, it cleans the numbers, and it converts everything into a structured data format. The second script, build_excel_model.py, takes that structured data and generates the full Excel workbook with all the sheets, formulas, charts, and forecast scenarios that we saw earlier. It also includes a reference document for line item mapping so the skill can handle variations in how different companies label their financials. Things like net revenue, sales, turnover, all that maps to the same revenue category. Now, what makes this more than a saved prompt is that Claude tests the skill after building it. It creates realistic test prompts and runs them in two ways, once using the skill and once without it as a baseline. So in total, it runs 6 parallel tests. The results show whether the skill produces complete, consistent outputs, and whether it outperforms the baseline on structure, formula accuracy, and coverage. In our case, the skill passed nearly all evaluation checks across every test scenario. Once built and tested, you install it. Go to Customize, then Skills, click the plus button, and upload the skill file. Claude installs it as FS to model, and from that point, it is live in your workspace. Now, anytime a task matches the trigger conditions, Claude loads the skill and follows the established pipeline automatically. What you created here is a system with extraction logic, model building scripts, validation rules, and tested benchmarks. So the next time new statements arrive, you don't rewrite any instructions. The skill handles it. So let me show you exactly how. Using the skill on new data. Okay, so I added 2 new quarterly PDF reports into the statements folder. Then I typed \fin2model, and Claude immediately confirmed the fs2model skill was loaded and active. It listed the contents, main instruction file, extraction script, Excel building script, line item mapping reference, and restated the trigger conditions. The follow-up instruction was short. I told Claude to check whether there are any new statements, and if there are, to run the same process and update the financial model. Claude found the 2 new reports and ran the full pipeline. 8 PDFs processed in total, including the original 6 and the 2 new ones. The extraction script pulled the new data, the model building script updated the workbook, and the new quarters were folded into the existing model using the same Python scripts, the same validation logic, and the same output structure as the first run. The updated model now covers 9 quarters, Q1 2025 through Q1 2027. Historical averages recalculated, margin trends extended, forecast scenarios refreshed based on the expanded data set. Claude also updated the supporting files, audit report, extraction log, and standard financials CSV. Everything consistent with the original output. Claude flagged 2 items worth reviewing. Revenue spiked sharply in Q4 2026, meaning the growth trend shifted in the new data, and the cash balance dropped significantly in Q1 2027 after a large dividend payout. Both of these affect your forecast assumptions and warrant a manual look before you present the model. Now, if you want the prompts and the data sets from this video, they are free in my community. Link is in the description below. The skill handles the extraction, the cleaning, the mapping, the calculations, and the formatting. Your job is to review the output, to question the assumptions, and to apply the financial judgment that no automated system can replace. The model is structurally complete and formula consistent, but the business decisions that come from it are still yours. So that is the full workflow. Raw PDFs to a working financial model. The process converted into a reusable skill, and the skill running automatically on new data with one instruction. Leave a comment if you've got any questions. I answer them all, and I'll see you in the next one.